This is over. It's done. The stuff that I've got for you today, I'm telling you, Trump is gonna win in a landslide. Trump and the Dream Team are going after Biden and Harris big time, even involving the Supreme Court. You will not believe the audacity that the administration has been posting about how they're giving almost $400 million to the country of Lebanon in the time of crisis of Americans, but they've only distributed $45 million, almost just 10% to hurricane victims, but they've given 10 times that to another foreign country, not including the billions of dollars to the other foreign countries. Trump and the Dream Team, they said they're done with it. They're going after them. They're going to seek using the Supreme Court in any means, ways necessary, because this is not right for the American people. The good news, though, is on top of this, a lot of the signs, a lot of the polls, the odds are going in Trump's favor. Even in Vegas, the betting odds are that Trump is going to win. The poly market polls are also having him win by 9 points at this time. We also have new additional whistleblower information about how the FEMA aid was distributed, how it was withheld, and what was supposed to go to hurricane victims has not been done so of what you've seen on the news. So much to go over today, but I want to say thank you to everybody that's watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you don't mind, click the thumbs up like button. It really does help the channel. And just want to say thank you to everybody that is joining us in our effort to do good through this channel. The super chats and also the membership dues. If you want to join as a member, the link is in the description. But we're taking that money and we're donating it to the hurricane victims. We're going to do it in about 15 days. So we're gathering money. But this is my pledge to you all that we are going to do good with this channel. And we've already shown you that we're giving back with our previous video from last month to Isaiah 117 House. But just want to give thanks to those that have already given. Becky Govin, Rosie Figueroa. Thank you so much for these blessings. It's really going to help people out. But we are here to bring you the top news. Let's go ahead and jump right into it because Trump and the team are just upset big time. Check it out.
How is it possible that Kamala Harris can just spend money like a drunken sailor? I mean, she is facing criticism this morning from angry Americans because she pledged $157 million to Lebanon at the same time that residents of North Carolina are struggling to recover from Hurricane Helene, and another hurricane is on the way. Here's what Kamala Harris posted on X. I am concerned about the well-being of civilians suffering in Lebanon. The United States will provide $157 million in additional assistance to the people of Lebanon for essential needs such as food, shelter, water, protection, and sanitation. Meanwhile, FEMA is running out of money, according to Alejandro Mayorkas. And reportedly, they've abandoned a devastated North Carolina town because they allegedly were not allowed to drive around a sign that said road closed. One resident said that nobody's been bringing in supplies except civilians. Tulsi Gabbard has been on the ground. She spoke to me yesterday. She's been on the ground in North Carolina as well as Georgia. Watch this.
The sad thing is, Maria, I look back to what happened in Maui during the wake of the tragic historic fires there and the many layers of failures that came from FEMA. And I'm seeing the exact same thing play out here today. While Vice President Harris and Joe Biden claim to be doing all they can and providing all the resources possible, FEMA is out on the ground, they say. But when you go out into these rural communities, they have yet to see anyone with a FEMA jacket on knocking on their door saying, how can we help you?
So
remember, we have evidence from a whistleblower that we're going to show you in a moment that the FEMA, who says that they've been out there helping people, have not actually been honoring that, and they haven't been doing what they say they've been doing. Summerman, thank you so much for the super chat. He said, in God's name, justice will be happening. In God we trust. 100%. Everybody, show Summerman some love in the chat.
What's the story here? I mean, FEMA is out of money. I mean, House Republicans, yourself included, want answers from DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas because apparently FEMA has redirected billions of dollars in aid from the emergency fund to illegal migrants. Now, FEMA and the White House is denying this, but White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre back in 2022 laid it all out. Watch this.
FEMA regional administrators have been meeting with city officials on site to coordinate available federal support from FEMA and other federal agencies. Funding is also available through FEMA's emergency food and shelter program to eligible local governments and non-for-profit organizations upon request to support humanitarian relief for migrants. We'll continue to do what we can as a federal government to support these cities as we rebuild our asylum processing system after it was gutted by the Trump administration.
Congressman, give me a break. Okay, they can't say they did not redirect the FEMA emergency money to illegals. She just told us what they were doing. But my question is on you. You're an elected official. How are they getting away with this? Aren't there three branches of government here?
Maria, there's a lot to unpack. It doesn't make you moral to try and help your neighbor when your own house is on fire. So I was one of those furious people when I read her tweet about helping, sending hundreds of millions of dollars to Lebanon. I honestly, first of all, they think money fell from the sky. I thought when I read it, she must have been talking about some town, Lebanon in Georgia or in North Carolina. Now, she was talking about Lebanon in Asia Minor. I couldn't believe that. I'm absolutely furious. FEMA's not out of money.
Did y'all hear that? We're sending hundreds of millions of dollars of money that we don't have because we're almost $36 trillion in debt. So we're having to borrow money to send money to a country in Asia Minor, but yet we're telling our own citizens that we are running out of money for FEMA. Are you kidding me? Like, guys, we need some new people in office.
We put in the continuing resolution $20 billion, so apparently they don't do their homework and they don't do their jobs and they don't read bills. But we need to put our American people first. The response has been an epic disaster. And if this was a Republican administration, it would be leading all news programs. It would be in all newspapers above the fold. But because it's Biden-Harris, they get a pass. And again, she's more concerned about Michigan than she is about the devastation in Georgia and the Carolinas, Virginia, Tennessee, and Florida.
I understand, but is anybody overseeing how the money in FEMA is being spent? KJP laid it out in 2022 that they were going to use emergency money from FEMA for the illegal migrants. So can they just do that without any oversight?
Well, of course, they've done, from what I've seen, hundreds of millions of dollars have been redirected over the last few years to foreign nationals before Americans. It's FEMA. It's emergency money for Americans. They never should have done it.
You can't make this crap
Unfortunately, we're out
up.
of session right now, but when we get back, we're going to have to do our job in oversight and to give the American people hard answers on this. But yeah, that's the executive branch of government. They do have leeway in doing so.
What a shame. And these people...
I'm telling you, this is why we need to clean house. This is why we need Elon Musk in there to go in and make sure that we cut out the fat where they're not giving our own money to other people besides American citizens. This is the latest from FEMA right here, where the Biden-Harris administration has provided more than $45 million to Hurricane Helene survivors. Okay, great. But guess what? You just had Kamala Harris just say that we're sending $157 million in additional assistance, totaling $385 million since 2023 to the country of Lebanon. Yet now we're running out of money for our own American citizens. Like, you seriously, like, this is straight from their website. You can't make this stuff up. We're in such a bad way. That's why it makes me happy to see things like this. The new poly markets are showing that Trump has a lead of 8.6% in the odds today to win, because we got to get away from this America Last agenda. I hate seeing Americans getting screwed over by politicians just so that they can make sure to appease foreign nationals instead of taking care of American citizens first. And there's even more data behind this. Check this out.
Donald Trump heroically goes back to Butler County, Pennsylvania, where he was shot in the head, and the hero, Corey Comparator, was murdered trying to save his family at the Butler County PA site. Two other people, in addition to President Trump, were shot and gravely wounded. The contrast this weekend between hapless, joking, cackling, goofball, socially IQ inept Kamala Harris, the worst presidential candidate in modern American history. That's including Joe Biden, by the way, and Donald Trump getting out there with Elon Musk in Butler County, Pennsylvania. The contrasts of the snapshots, the pictures, and the sound bites, which is all campaigns are, as you well know.
And I just want to say real quick that our prayers are with those in Florida right now. They just went through Hurricane Helene. They're about to be hit by Hurricane Milton, and they're saying that it's a Category 5, and it may even be a Category 6. But just our prayers are with them that those people are safe as can be.
From this weekend, my humble opinion, are devastating. Don't get ahead of yourself. I'm not telling you there's going to be any red wave. You know, I hate that talk. We still got to get out and execute. Many of you have already voted. Get your votes in early. As you've seen with these tragic natural disasters, over 200 people killed with Helene, a devastating storm, Milton, approaching the west coast of Florida, which may impact the show a little bit. I will let you know. Guy and I were discussing it this morning. If there's any sense of danger, folks, we may have to record a show Wednesday night. It's supposed to be here Thursday morning. I know you understand, but with all that going on and the hapless response, the snapshots and sound bites for Kamala Harris's campaign, ladies and gentlemen, are getting apocalyptic now. This is the most socially inept, fake presidential candidate we've ever seen. 'Cause she's not real. She didn't win anything. She ran for president and didn't get a single vote, okay? She dropped out before the Ohio caucus. As they spend our money, our government, on illegals and people who are not U.S. citizens, and Joe Biden is sunning his on the beach while 234 people died due to Hurricane Helene, sunning his on the beach while the media does jack expose this loser, and while his vice president is out in Hollywood kissing the of a bunch of Hollywood pseudo-celebrities at a fundraiser, 234 people were dying in one of the worst natural disasters, by death toll, the worst in the last 20 plus years, Hurricane Helene. Of course, the media covers for these zeros. And what were they doing with the money? They were spending it on illegals who don't even belong in the country. And their first act coming here was to flip you the middle finger and cross the border illegally and say the rules don't apply to them. How do you think that feels to me? To be married to a woman who decided, yeah, you know what? We're going to go through the legal process, which is a major pain in, but she did it. And what was Kamala Harris doing? Play this on VO for me. Here's Kamala Harris clogging up an assembly line, loading a toothpaste into it. Here she is, totally cringy. This is what Kamala Harris, this is the extent. Tell me this isn't a photo op.
It's all a photo op.
She moves the other lady out of the direction to get into a line to put a thing of toothpaste in a baggie. I've got a better idea, Kamala. Instead of clogging up the assembly line for a cheap photo op, how about you and the president, you know, it's the Biden-Harris administration, stop spending billions of dollars on illegals and go and help the people of Asheville and Georgia and Florida and South Carolina. My friend just sent me a picture of how bad is Florida. People forget Florida got smoked too and is about to get smoked again. And freaking FEMA is out of money. Why? Because the United States is spending money on rebuilding Lebanon, on illegals. Oh, come on, Dan, that's a conspiracy theory. No, you're a media. That's not a conspiracy theory, it's real. Here's an actual tweet from Kamala Harris's official Twitter account at VP. The people of Lebanon, No, I'm not. Michael says I'm mispronouncing North Carolina. No, Justin left his glasses at home. He's like, that says Kentucky. No, it says the people of Lebanon. Oh, Lebanon, Pennsylvania. No, not Lebanon. No, Lebanon, the country. The people of Lebanon, this is an actual tweet, are facing an increasingly dire humanitarian situation. You think like the people in Asheville? Like the people in Florida?
She didn't send out a tweet, or I'm sorry, a post like this for the people in the hurricane and all this stuff. She sends it out for another country. She talks about how much money is being given for another country. You cannot tell me that her priority is America first when this is how things come across and this is coming straight from her.
Like the people in Tampa and Fort Myers and Cape Coral and Naples The people up north from Tampa were going to be hit by the wind. What about their humanitarian situation? Kamala notes she's concerned about Lebanon, the security and well-being of civilians suffering in Lebanon. And she'll continue working to help meet the needs of all civilians there. To that end, she notes she's going to take your money. This is an actual tweet, dudes. I'm not making this shit up. To that end, the United States stole money from their taxpayers, I'm throwing that in there, and will provide nearly $157 million to the people of Lebanon, you know, to like rebuild and stuff. Lebanon, that hosts a terror group. It brings the additional U.S. assistance to Lebanon to $385 million. What a leader. This woman, man, have you ever seen, this woman's like Patton, General Patton in an emergency. Sends out a tweet about.
Teresa Anderson says, I can't stand any more of this. I agree. But this, do you realize how many people have no idea that this is happening? Like, I thank everybody who watches this, who shares this, but you wouldn't be surprised. Nobody has, that the majority of people have no clue this is happening behind the scenes, not essentially behind the scenes, but happening, and they have no idea. That's why we have this show, and that's why we put this out there so that people can see the truth of what's actually happening from our politicians.
People of Kentucky. Actually, Lebanon. Justin's like, I don't actually wear glasses. I can see straight. That actually says the people of Lebanon. This is your vice president here. Here's your vice president, right? She takes a little, pretend this little pen here, right? This is see if she opens up a little baggie. Here she is. She's like, hey, can I get in the assembly line? Let's pretend he's caffeine. Here we go. Look, here's Kamala Harris. It's the people of Lebanon. That's Kamala Harris, the extent of her leadership. That's your vice presidential candidate.
Look at this.
I didn't even see this. Thank you, fellas. Hey, they're really knocking it out of the park, folks. Justin just pulled this up. Friday, October 4th. These guys are just taking liberties. I like this. Biden-Harris administration sent South Carolina $2 million in emergency relief. $2 million? Not 200. No, that's $2 million. You got to get them glasses that you don't need back on. But they're sending the people.
Eric E.T. Terrell, thank you so much for joining the True Life News family. Let's go. Everybody, show Eric some love in the chat.
Lebanon, $385 million over the last year. You can see that. It's actually in the tweet. That's the verified account. $385 million.
Golly.
2 million South Carolina, 385 million people in Lebanon. No doubt Tom Cotton, who's been tearing it up lately, we don't fall in love with politicians. I'm just saying, when a guy or a woman goes on TV and represents the cause, then they're a +1, and we're going to use it. So Tom Cotton, who's been tearing it up and is doing a good job, Tom Cotton went on one of the weekend shows. Was this with Kirsten Welker? Is this NBC? Kirsten Welker, who's, what is it? NBC, yeah, who's absolutely hapless. Nails it again about how the administration is stealing FEMA money to give to illegals because it's your money and they steal it at the end of a barrel of a gun through this thing called confiscatory taxation and giving FEMA money to illegals. And Kristen Welker, who of course has to parrot the talking points, well, that's a different pot of FEMA money. Really? They have no problem moving money around at all. It's like saying like the Secret Service NSSC money couldn't be used for another event in the event of an emergency, as if they can't just go to Congress and ask to move the money around. The same administration that illegally takes money to pay off your rich neighbor Samuel's kid's student loan is now claiming they can't find money to fund the hurricane support, even though Hurricane Milton is getting ready to destroy Western Florida right now, is giving your money to illegals. And that's a fact, Jack. Listen to yourself.
It is true that FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security have been spending billions of dollars on migrants. Now, I understand some people say they're separate funds, but we just passed a short-term spending bill. It's very common for the administration to come and ask for permission to move money between funds, especially to prepare for emergencies. And second, I would note that this administration seems to have no problem finding money when they want to spend it on their priorities.
Right.
When they need hundreds of billions of dollars to pay off student loans for graduate students in gender studies programs, they somehow somehow find it. When it's trying to get helicopters to deliver food and water and cellular service and life-saving medicine into these mountain valleys, they somehow can't seem to find the money.
Let me tell you that. That's the 100% truth. That's what we're dealing with right now. And I've got something special for you, but I just want to say thank you to Mr. Tracy J. Norby. I'm telling you what, this guy, that's a true American right there. He said American citizens deserve so much better from this poor administration has ever done. I know this election will end in a landslide for President Trump. God bless all the hurricane victims. 100%. Everybody show Mr. Tracy J. Norby some love in the chat. Remember, we're taking this money and we're going to make a big donation to the hurricane victims. We're going to do it live on this channel so that you can see that this channel is going to do some dang good and help our fellow brothers and sisters whenever this administration is failing to. We're going to do all that we can for them as well. Because I'm telling you this, what you're about to see, all the polling is always off when it comes to Trump. So they did an analysis, and listen to this about how things end up if they take into account what's happened in the past.
What if the polls are off? There have been previous elections, of course, where that's happened. If that happens.
What happens if the polls are slightly off? Remember, back in 2020, the polls underestimated Donald Trump. So what happens if we have a similar error across those key battleground states? Well, if that happens again, look at this. Donald Trump carries all of these Great Lake battleground states. He carries Nevada as well. Of course, he carries Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. And he gets, to get this, 312 electoral votes.
312,
so the bottom line
baby.
is, if we have an error like we did 4 years ago, Donald Trump is going to win this election. Kamala Harris is going to lose.
So
what if
that's what we're looking for. 312, just anything past 281 to win the election for Donald Trump. Because again, too, you can see that this dang administration doesn't know what the heck that they're doing. And they're facing a lot of backlash right now. But you know what? They deserve it. They should be doing more. Eric E.T. Terrell, thank you so much for the super chat. Everybody, show Eric some love in the chat. Guys, we're going to do some amazing things with this channel. Check this out.
Of Americans brace for another monster storm, this time Hurricane Milton. It's intensifying quickly and it could hit at catastrophic levels. This new storm is headed to the U.S. just days after Hurricane Helene ravaged the Southeast. The suffering and destruction is astounding. Over 230 people are dead, many still missing, and desperate Americans are still without key supplies. Many residents of the hardest hit areas say they feel totally abandoned, claiming that they're being forced to fend for themselves because assistance from FEMA and the Biden-Harris administration is not able to reach them. With the federal government nowhere in sight, distressed residents have been relying on neighbors, on private organizations for help. One Helene victim telling the New York Post that FEMA said they were not coming because of a, quote, road closed sign. Struggling and devastated Americans are asking, when will someone step in?
Wow.
I think that our government can do more. Because we're going to need the help. There's roads gone.
There's so much more that could be done, and giving us $750 if you can even apply for it is ridiculous.
Where is the help for Western North Carolina? We can send billions to Ukraine, and we can't help Western North Carolina.
The response time right now is extremely slow.
Wow.
If at all, in some areas, I know haven't really.
Teresa Anderson, thank you so much for the super chat. Said, Joel, keep it up, man. Your channel is amazing. Hey, thank y'all so much. Everybody, show Teresa some love in the chat.
And touched except by the locals.
President Biden is here today. Do you have a message for him?
Yeah, whoopee-doo, and where are you at when everything else happens?
Good questions. And now members of the Republican Party are expressing their outrage to the White House's storm response.
When you talk to the people who are directly affected, they will tell you that this has been an abject failure. FEMA has lost sight of its core mission. The Federal Emergency Management Association, their mission is to help people in times like this of natural disaster, not to be engaged in using any pool of funding from any account for resettling illegal aliens who have come across the border.
The other is federal coordination. Very slow. Government was caught flat-footed. Biden administration didn't come out of the gate
This administration seems to have no problem finding money when they want to spend it on their priorities. When they need hundreds of billions of dollars to pay off student loans for graduate students in gender studies programs, they somehow find it. When it's trying to get helicopters to deliver food and water and cellular service and life-saving medicine into these mountain valleys, they somehow can't seem to find the money.
That is so crazy.
Guy, I mean, the bottom line, because you have entities trying to fact-check Republicans on this, the bottom line is, one, what the residents said, but number two, President Biden did not go to FEMA headquarters on camera. The first time we saw anyone from the administration there was Kamala Harris on Monday when the storm occurred on Thursday.
There was a long delay here. The president finally got down there and then returned to the White House. Someone asked him about the affected states in the storm zone, and he didn't know which storm they were talking about at first, and then said, oh, everyone's very happy. They're all very happy across the board, paraphrasing. And we just heard from a few people who would dissent from that view, who live in that area. I had a gentleman who's from Save Our Allies, who's doing some of this work on the ground in North Carolina. He was on my radio show on Friday. He estimated 90% of the efforts that he has seen have come from private citizens and organizations, not from the government. It's too delayed, it's too little, and to pretend like that didn't happen is preposterous.
So we have Tim Kennedy from Save Our Allies. He was on America's Newsroom earlier, reflecting exactly what you just said. Let's listen.
We arrived the day after the hurricane landed. While nobody could get through roads, we're taking four-wheelers and getting in there. Where there's no hotels with power, we're taking four-wheelers and sleeping in the back of SUVs. What was clearly absent was the state and federal response.
Man.
The men and women that showed up from FEMA, it's still woefully absent. There was no command and control. We were begging and pleading for the state to hand over control, C2, command and control of the incident command system.
Sandra Mario Renzi, thank you so much for the super chat and helping these people out. Everybody show Sandra some love in the chat.
To the United States military.
I mean, Martha, this is insane. Walmart managed to show up along with several other private organizations.
Honestly, Kaylee, I can't think of any better demonstration for the bloated inefficiency of a large government. I mean, that is what we're watching here. We see time and time again, Save Our Allies, Rubicon, they're able to get stuff done. They're former military people. They know how to cut through and say, look, here's what needs to happen right now. And the fact that we're hearing from Karine Jean-Pierre that, you know, this FEMA money goes for the immigrants in cities. This FEMA money is going towards relief efforts. And that money is going to run out. And we see this other hurricane that's barreling towards the coast. I don't know what else people need to see other than to look at this situation, to listen to the people on the ground. I know there's a lot of politics going back and forth here, but the person I interviewed and countless other people saying, look, we're neighbors helping neighbors, and we're getting some help from private groups, but the government cannot handle this stuff. They step all over their own feet. They don't know who's talking to whom, and it's the perfect demonstration of large bureaucratic government that's falling all over itself.
And Molly, maybe the most tone-deaf tweet of the century came from Vice President Kamala Harris saying, I'm concerned about the security and well-being of citizens suffering in Lebanon. We'll continue to work to help meet the needs of civilians there. To that end, the U.S. will provide nearly $157 million in additional assistance to the people of Lebanon. How about the people of Asheville?
It's just amazing to see something like that come out during this sensitive period. It's not just the delay in getting down there. It's that what they've been offering people is a few $100 to help with rebuilding. We're still in the rescue and recovery operations right now. And the lack of attention from the federal government is appalling, particularly when they're spending so much money overseas, hard-earned taxpayer money to fight wars overseas or to help out the people of Lebanon, and just leave these people in the dust.
You know,
let me tell you this, like Eric E.T., thank you so much for the super chat. Says money, Lebanon, then they fire missiles the next day to Israel. Everybody show Eric some love in the chat. 100% right, because I'm telling you this. Whenever the entire disaster started from the beginning, we did not have leaders who were ready at the command to go in and make sure that our Americans were safe. Biden was at the beach and Kamala Harris was at a fundraiser event. And then Trump got to their days before our own president and vice president did. That just tells you the priorities and what type of leadership that they have. Nana Peggy, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, I pray President Trump gets elected. Everyone please vote on November 5th, 100%. Everybody show Eric, E.T., and Nana Peggy some love in the chat. Guys, we need some real leaders that are willing to get their boots dirty, get there, and actually hit the ground as soon as things happen. Not wait and then show people and then put these posts out saying we're giving hundreds of millions of dollars to other countries when our own Americans need help right now.
I'm curious to see how this plays out because Thursday, President Biden is supposed to leave to go overseas. It's being described by CNN as a non-urgent diplomatic trip to Germany and Angola. Well, when the hurricane hits Wednesday night and Thursday morning, is he still going to head over for that non-urgent trip?
I hope not. They're getting a double whammy. We have friends all in the Tampa area. Houses were flooded. One neighborhood, my friend used to live in that neighborhood. She went back to it. 3 houses had burned down, totally lost everything. That is nothing even compared to what we're seeing the mass devastation in North Carolina. My friend's brother is a builder in the Charlotte area, and he packed up his truck with a friend, went to Home Depot, got a bunch of supplies, and the sister says that one guy with FEMA came to Marshall, North Carolina about 2 days after the storm. He assessed the area and said they need everything. Capital letters. No one has come back. Not one person with FEMA. The government, et cetera, the locals have band together and are organizing a cleanup.
Yeah, and Governor Kemp had to call and say, what about the rural counties? Make sure they get federal declarations.
They spent $1.4 billion on migrants. They gave $30 million to the North Carolina area.
Priorities, that's what that tells you.
Priorities, y'all. This is
brace for another
we're in a sad state. I'm sorry, we're in a sad state for America right now. When we look at where things are at, look, I got this chart to show you. Check this out. This is that you've heard of the CBP1 app. You heard of that where they just go on an app and then they say they want to come in, they get a scheduled time so that way they don't have to, illegally come through the border. Look at how many inadmissible aliens have been coming through the CBP1 app. This is literally disgraceful. If you look at this, these aliens right here at the bottom are categorized as inadmissible by CBP, but they're actually the ones being flown into the country. So what that means is that they're essentially considered a threat to the nation. So we don't let them in, but they're allowing them through the CBP1 app. Like, you can't make this crap up. The data that we have and the news that we have nowadays, we've had like never before. And that's why you're getting to see the truth. You're getting to see firsthand the priority of this administration, what they feel, where they're putting their priorities at and their money at, which is actually taxpayer money. Let me know your thoughts. But Jack Weiser, thank you so much for the super chat. He said, please keep your prayers coming for those in North Carolina. Everybody show Jack some love in the chat. Because let me tell you this, we have a whistleblower that has come out. Check this out over the entire fiasco of this hurricane response.
Let's bring in former FEMA Director Michael Brown. Sir, it is great to see you. We're getting disturbing new reports about what's going on with FEMA aid. According to a new whistleblower report sent to Congressman Matt Gaetz, FEMA allegedly misappropriated funds in the wake of Helene, withheld pre-disaster aid, all while first responders and service members were left waiting in hotels without deployment orders. And of course, this comes just days after DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said FEMA does not have enough funds to make it through the rest of hurricane season. And DHS records on their own website show they spent all that money on illegal aliens. Sir, your reaction to the current state of affairs?
Well, let's first point out that FEMA's never going to run out of money because FEMA has 536 advocates. Well, I say 536 because I was going to include the president until I heard your report. Maybe I shouldn't include the president. FEMA has 535 advocates that will make sure that the disaster relief fund has enough money in it. They always do, they always have, and that's the 435 members of the House and the 100 members of the Senate. They will eventually appropriate money. But let's not let that take away from the fact that FEMA has the disaster relief fund tends to be used as a slush fund to do stupid things like provide money through that for illegal alien housing. And the problem,
I hope y'all heard in the beginning, this is a former director with this whole organization. Like, he's literally telling us exactly what's going on.
Whether that money is going to be replenished or not, the optics are horrible. That's mission creep beyond anything I could have ever imagined in the almost, 20 years now since I left FEMA. There were times once FEMA got moved into the Department of Homeland Security that I was constantly bombarded. Well, can't we use the disaster relief fund for this or for that? And I always had to push back and say, no, that's really the savings account that we have so that we can pay not just for ongoing disasters, because there's always an ongoing disaster, but for any new disaster that might occur. And so I think, where's the FEMA director been? Where's Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security?
We haven't even heard nothing from them.
They're nowhere to be seen. And so when they're not out communicating about what they're doing, and on top of that, the president is saying, we have nothing else to give, then whatever's the truth or not true about temporary flight restrictions or not enough money or we're doing this or doing that, people are left to their own imagination. And my imagination is you must not be doing anything because you're not out there bragging about what you are doing.
Yes,
wow.
Congresswoman Kat Kammack confirming that there is a temporary flight restriction over North Carolina, which is leaving many people scratching their heads as to why, because of the lackluster federal response. A lot of American citizens in the private sector. I beg your pardon, sir?
What really drives me crazy about the flight restrictions are, we put flight restrictions over New Orleans simply because we had anywhere between 300 and 500 military aircraft in the air rescuing people off rooftops. Well, if we have a flight restriction in North Carolina, where's the 101st Airborne? Where's the 102nd? Where's the 82nd? Where's all this military aircraft that would require a temporary flight restriction? I don't see it. Nobody can explain it to me. So why is it there? I think it's simply because they don't want to be shown up by private citizens doing what they should be doing.
Wow.
Amen to that, sir. I think it's precisely what's happened, and how hypocritical of the Democrat Party who blasted you and former President Bush over your handling of Katrina, and look at what they're doing and how quiet and silently they sit right now when their political party is completely screwing this one up. Meantime, sir, there are questions about why the National Guard is not being deployed. There are reported 1,000 active duty troops from Fort Liberty waiting to deploy to North Carolina, which is one of the hardest hit states. Here is what the Pentagon, when asked why this is not happening, why they said it's not. Listen.
I think they're certainly ready to go. They've been authorized. It's more a matter of making sure that the state and FEMA are ready to knit them into the structure that's in place. The last thing you want to do is have a bunch of people show up and kind of, exacerbate the system even more. They're authorized, they're ready to go, but it is ultimately the state's call on when and how they are moved into the state.
Right. The governor's call. Why would a Democrat governor of North Carolina be dragging his feet on this one, sir, do you think?
Wow.
I don't think people realize how devastating of a statement that is that she made, because what she said is actually true. If they have however many troops it is that are ready to move, you know what they're waiting on? They're waiting on what's called a mission assignment. And the mission assignment is where FEMA says to DOD, we need X number of troops, Blackhawks, Chinooks, whatever the DOD personnel and equipment is. And that mission assignment is simply a piece of paper that says, go here, 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 and here. What she is admitting to is my concern, and that is FEMA hasn't asked for it. And if FEMA hasn't asked for it, then who's in charge and what are they doing?
Wow.
Good grief. Last thing I have for you, sir. Joe Biden has no idea, apparently, what's going on. Listen to his response when a reporter tried to get an update on the relief efforts. Listen.
What do the states of the storm zone need, Mr. President?
Sorry?
What do the states of the storm zone, what do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm you're talking about.
I didn't know which storm you were talking about.
And they're very happy across the board.
He didn't know what storm they were talking about? Mr. Brown, your reaction?
And he had just come from that storm. So if you give him the benefit of the doubt that he really is demented enough that he doesn't remember where he was, that's pretty scary for the country in terms of our national security. But second of all, if he really did not know what storm he came from, he's not paying attention. And again, who's in charge? Where are the mission assignments? Where's the allocation of the resources? And to say that we've given everything that we can give is simply not true, because I don't see everything that I used being used currently. And if that's the case, What are they doing?
Man, I'm telling you this, y'all. This is heartbreaking at the highest level. Like, I'm serious. It just blows my mind that we continue to see how just incompetent the administration is. Here was somebody else that they posted. Secretary Pete Buttigieg said the Biden-Harris is delivering additional emergency relief. Here is them giving $2 million to emergency relief funding for roads and bridges damaged. And this person put $200 million, but FEMA diverted $650 million for funds to import illegal voters from across our southern border. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's what I'm saying, is that I love that we have all the information now like never before because of X and other sources. But it blows my mind that these people would retain office after such a fiasco of this response to these hurricane victims. And that's why, like, I love who you're about to hear next. These are the leaders that we need, because right today is a anniversary for what happened in Israel. And I'm telling you, it's heartbreaking, but we need some new leadership in office.
Since the October 7th massacre by Hamas, where nearly 1,200 people were murdered and more than 250 others were taken hostage.
Former President Trump and Senator J.D. Vance will both participate in events marking the one-year anniversary today.
Republican vice presidential nominee Senator J.D. Vance joins us now. Senator, where were you a year ago when you heard the news? And 1 year later, where do you think this conflict is at?
Yeah, when I heard the news a year ago, I had just woken up, of course, because the time difference, and you were hearing reports about this really, really brutal attack. And, you know, my wife and I have a couple of friends who actually live in Israel, make their life in Israel. So first, of course, our thoughts go to our friends and how are they doing? And then as the news rolls in, you just realize how unbelievably gruesome it was. And I think on this year anniversary, what we should try to remember is that there is true barbarism in the world. There is true evil in the world. And when the good guys are against the bad guys, America should try as much as we can to support the good guys. And unfortunately, what we've seen from the current administration is a lot of wavering, a lot of waffling. And I think because of that, it's prolonged the war. It's gotten a lot of people, civilians on the Palestinian and the Israeli side, unnecessarily killed. And it's made it harder to achieve any real peace in the Middle East. It really drives home why we need stronger and much smarter leadership in the White House.
Yes.
We have Donald Trump, who's saying that Israel should target Iran's nuclear infrastructure. But when Kamala Harris was asked about it on this 60-minute special that's going to air tonight, they released a little clip of it. She couldn't say that she was an ally of Benjamin Netanyahu's. What was your response to that?
Golly.
Well, I think that it just drives home again. Kamala Harris's entire approach to this crisis has been to, with the one hand, say, well, maybe we kind of support Israel, and then with the other hand, actually pursue policies that prolongs the war. If you actually want peace in the region, if you want to preserve civilian life, and most importantly, if you want to enable Israel to build the kind of long-term security for itself in the region, then you have to support policies that will get the war over as quickly as possible. On things like holding back precision-guided weapons that would both destroy the Hamas bad guys, but also minimize civilian casualties, Kamala Harris has sort of been at the forefront of threatening to stab our allies in the back. And because of it, we have a war that has gone on for much longer than it should have. Frankly, if the Israelis weren't able to do what they do best, I think this thing would have been over months ago, and we could have been on the pathway to rebuilding a Abraham Accords, a Middle Eastern peace process that unites Israel with some of its Arab neighbors to provide a counterbalance in the region to Iran. What we have now is, unfortunately, Iran is empowered. They're richer than they've ever been before, and they are emboldened to attack not just Israel, but a lot of really important American assets in the region, American economic interests, and unfortunately, it's all been emboldened and all been encouraged by Kamala Harris's weak leadership.
Senator, I want to ask you about North Carolina. There's a lot of debate and a lot of conflicting reports about whether or not money is coming from FEMA money spent on illegal immigrants or the resettling of migrants, and could that have gone to the American people in need in North Carolina? There's conflicting reports and there's debate about the responsiveness as well of FEMA. You've done a good job of separating and talking about the priorities, I think, of the American government. My question for you is, how would you and Donald Trump, in a situation like this, ensure that you live up to what you have talked about, that we place Americans first?
You're going to love this, y'all.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, you have to separate what people are saying. They'll say, well, there's a bucket of money in FEMA that's gone to illegal aliens, and that's somehow separate than the bucket of money that should by right go to American citizens. I think that misses the fundamental point that the Biden-Harris administration has turned FEMA effectively into an agency that helps to resettle and helps to deal with illegal immigration. That is just fundamentally going to distract focus from their core job of helping American citizens in their time of need. I think the fundamental mistake that Kamala Harris's administration has made here, Will, is that from the get-go, you should have imposed military-style command and control. You've got 8 different bureaucratic organizations. You've got a lot of different bureaucratic fiefdoms that sometimes delay the provision of necessary resources. You need to empower a military commander on the ground to get helicopters to where they need to go, to get supplies to where they need to go, to cut through some of the FAA bureaucracy when it comes to, planes and helicopters landing in the right place. The problem here, I really believe, is just it's like the DMV at industrial scale. 100%. And because of it, a lot of folks in North Carolina are suffering unnecessarily. I hope to God you don't have unnecessary loss of life, but I fear that we do. And it all goes back to, why do we have a president and a vice president, one of whom is on the beach, the other of whom is participating in fundraisers rather than doing their job? It is incompetence of the highest order. And what Donald Trump would do if he was president is impose real leadership. Force the bureaucracy to be responsive, not at a bureaucratic pace, but at a business pace to the needs of American citizens. That's how you save lives and limit needless suffering.
Well, I can tell you, I guess they have...
Becky Gavon, thank you so much for the super chat and helping these people out. Everybody show Becky some love in the chat.
Go back to the Senate if they want to change buckets of where the money's going to go. But if you look at FEMA spending, they put $1.4 billion on migrants. Shelter service, $640 million. Emergency food services, $780 million. I think that is obscene. I think that's got to stop, and I imagine you guys are going to attack that right away. Never before. The other thing is, just use the Army. The Army's an hour away. They can organize anything. Fort Bragg is sitting there. They're waiting for the call. 9 days later, they get a call. They're there, already turning everything around, and they are getting a pass. She went to campaign trail. He stayed on the beach. They don't call the Army for 7 days. And can you imagine if you guys were in power and you did that? That's all they'd be talking about.
Well, Brian, we'd get attacked, and rightfully so, because when leadership fails, they should get attacked, and Kamala Harris has been a complete failure of leadership. Think about this. In 2010, there was a terrible earthquake in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. The 82nd Airborne was on the ground 2 days later. There was a disastrous hurricane an hour away from the 82nd Airborne's headquarters. It took more than a week for the full deployment to arrive and start helping people out. It's a complete lack of leadership. When things like this happen, you need somebody in charge. You need somebody saying, we're going to save as many lives as possible. Red tape be damned. Unfortunately, what you've had is somebody asleep at the wheel. Nobody knows who's in charge. And I think it has delayed the provision of necessary resources to the people of North Carolina. They're angry, they're sad, they're heartbroken. You talk to a lot of folks, and this is a region, the Appalachian region of our country, that has been ignored by leaders for 40 years, and they really feel ignored today. The way you solve that problem is by having leaders who show up and focus on the people. Kamala Harris has failed to do that.
Well, Donald Trump was at that rally in Butler on Saturday. I personally would be scared to death to go back to that place, to that event. I know. And that crowd was huge. It was massive. We've heard anywhere between 20,000 and 100,000. We've read different reports. But look how big that crowd is. What was it like? And what's your response to, I mean, PA is such an important state for this election.
Well, first of all, it was incredible energy. It was a celebratory mood, but it was also bittersweet, of course, because Corey Compertore, of course, lost his life at the last Butler, Pennsylvania rally. I spoke with his sisters. I spoke with his wife and his daughters. And, you know, there is just this tension between, we're so happy to be there in Pennsylvania, but we're so sad that Corey Compertore is no longer with us. And I think that what Donald Trump and I take from that is you have incredible people who are not just willing to show up, but in Corey's case, willing to throw himself over his wife and his daughters to protect them. When you've got people like that on your team, we're going to campaign as hard as we can to earn the people's trust over the next 30 days. I just take an inspiration from it because President Trump said this very well at the rally, guys. He talked about, I think most men have asked themselves in a moment of crisis, if the bullets start flying, am I going to be man enough to do what Corey Comparatori did? I take inspiration from his sacrifice and what he did. And I think
twice.
A lot of folks in Butler, Pennsylvania were thrilled, both to celebrate his life, but I think celebrate what's possible in this country if we get better leadership. That's, of course, what this campaign's all about.
Man, I'm telling you what, we have our prayers for the families. We have our prayers for those in all the affected states. You know, we have our prayers for those that are about to be hit again by this other hurricane that they said is a hurricane Category 5, and it might be a Category 6. But let me tell you this. This is from FEMA's website. Don't let them try to lie to you. They've been relocating people to the United States to try to make them into voters. Look at this. All this hundreds of millions of dollars is all about communities receiving migrants. Why do we have to keep giving hundreds of millions to the billions of dollars to relocate migrants when we got people in our own country? We got homeless veterans, we got families, we got single moms, single dads that need help. They could use this money. Taxpayer money. It just blows my mind. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who is watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. We want to serve you every day with the top news. And just want to say thank you to everybody that's a member of the channel. And remember, with all the super chats and members, we're going to make a huge donation in a couple of weeks to the hurricane victims, to help them out, to help out our fellow brothers and sisters. We appreciate everybody so much. And if you don't mind, click the thumbs up like button. It really does help to grow the channel. Just want to give some shout outs to Summerman, Eric E.T. Terrell. We've got Teresa Anderson, Sandra Marienzi. We've got English English translator. I think, yeah. That was Nana Peggy, I think. Jack Weiser, Becky Gavon, Mr. Tracy J. Norby. Thank y'all so much for those blessings. They are going to help these people out. I'm telling you what, we're going to be transparent with this channel. We are going to show you that we're going to bring positive change, and we're going to do good, and we're going to make sure that we help out our brothers and sisters, because that American flag flies for all of us. It flies for everybody. We all bleed red, white, and blue, no matter where you come from. If you're an American citizen, we got to have each other's back. I love you all. Thank you so much for your support. Remember, we're here to serve you, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.